As part of my project, I needed a simple yet powerful tool to diagram the architecture of the solution. This would help me to plan out the architecture and also to track changes. I wanted something that was really quick to use so that I could be free to make modifications to the diagram as I was thinking, and then to immediately see the results in virtual paper. Visio is my go-to tool at work, but it was prohibitively expensive for hobby projects where I would only need to create a few diagrams. I did some Google research and discovered a SaaS called Terrastruct. It worked really well. There wasn't much information I could find out about it online, and so I thought I'd do a quick review video to help others who might be interested in it. I need a disclaimer here because I'm not a full-time reviewer, and so this will be imperfect and based on my own experiences with the tool. There are 3 plans available: an individual plan that allows for 4 layers per diagram, 2 scenarios per layer, 3 frames per scenario, and allows for diagrams to be embeddable as iframes. This is the plan that I'm on. I've already hit the scenario and layer limit, and so I had to go back to the drawing board to ensure that I could stay on the free plan. If you're using this tool for anything complex, I would recommend moving to the next plan. If my projects ever generate any revenue, I will definitely be doing that. The next plan is a Pro plan for $14.99 a month and gives you unlimited layers, scenarios, and frames. It adds commenting, granular permissioning, export to PDF, PowerPoint, live values, Google Drive syncing, and offline access to diagrams. There's a 33% discount for students. Last is the Enterprise plan, where they do custom pricing for you. It adds self-hosting, 24-hour human support, custom billing and invoicing, single sign-on, and end-to-end encryption. The end-to-end encryption part confused me, to be honest, as the site already uses SSL. Perhaps they mean that the data will be encrypted at rest. The UI is clean and neat. On the left we have layers, which allows for an architecture to be layered into various levels of abstraction. Pretty standard for a diagramming tool, not much that can be said here. Below that is the scenarios section. This is really powerful in that it can allow you to find system behavior under various conditions. I've also used it in my diagrams to highlight certain parts of the diagram by increasing the opacity on the rest of the diagram. I've done something similar in Visio, but I find it much quicker and easier in Terrastruct. On the right we have various panels. The first is a shapes panel that allows for shapes to be placed on the canvas. It has all the shapes you would need for a basic diagram, but bear in mind that they are nowhere near the amount of shapes that a tool like Visio would have. You can group basic shapes together to make your own though, and a nice feature is you can have what they call live values, which will update the shape based on data from a webhook. Next is links, which do as expected. You have the option of some pretty basic arrows with varying styles. You have the ability to add text boxes to diagrams, and I find the formatting to layout to be really intuitive. They have an icons panel with a huge collection of icons for things like AWS and Azure, which I find quite useful. The next panel is an image upload panel where you can upload your own images. The free version has a 0.5 meg limit on picture size. If you want to Google search images in order to embed them in your diagram, you can do that on the next panel. And then the final panel allows you to save templates for reuse. Unfortunately, the templates can only be used within a diagram and not across diagrams. In a web app, performance is key, especially in a diagramming tool. I don't want to sit around and wait for a diagram to update after I make a change, as that takes me out of flow. Think modify instant feedback is optimal. I was really impressed with the performance of Terrastruct UI. Being stuck in the south of Africa means that we have a latency between 2 to 300 milliseconds to Europe and America. The Terrastruct UI is very performant, and a change is instantly visible on the diagram. It looks like most functions run in the browser, and then the data is synced back to the server in the background. It felt very much like using a desktop app, and I was very impressed. The one part of the UI where performance is dismal is the icon panel. I would click on it and wait for seconds before the icons would load, and it would take a very long time for the complete list to load. It looks like they're loading each individual icon over my 2 to 300 milliseconds internet connection. There has to be a better way. There are two modes of operating the UI, an edit mode that allows one to make changes, and then a presentation mode that hides some of the editing controls and allows you to talk through your diagram. It works well, but I do have some gripes. It doesn't seem to put the browser into full screen mode by default, which is a bit annoying. You can click a button on the UI or press 11 on your keyboard in order to force the browser to go into full screen mode, but I would have liked them to do it automatically. It also does not hide the top bar, but only the right editing panels. When I present, I want the maximum screen space devoted to my diagrams, and the top bar is unnecessary in my view. I understand why the layers and scenarios sections stay on the screen, as you'll potentially need to interact with them while presenting, but the top bar seems unnecessary. One of the architects I worked for had some very good advice for me. He said that moving into a cloud, you need to know what your exit strategy is. You don't want to get locked into a cloud, and this is where Terrastruct could do more in my view. There's an option to export the diagram. It supports PDF, PowerPoint, PNG, or Google Drive. This is only available in the paid tier, and as I have the free tier, I was unable to try it. I would have preferred more options that would make the file editable after export. PowerPoint is fine, but Visio, SmartDraw, and some of the other formats would have been better, and would have given me peace of mind that should they go under or I wanted to move to another tool, I would be able to export my work in a format that was sustainable. Terrastruct is a simple yet powerful diagramming tool that is easy to pick up and use. The UI is very performant for a web app, and it is a pleasure to use from that standpoint. The presentation mode needs work. The export options are also somewhat limited and should be expanded, especially for corporates who may need to keep diagrams for years to come. The free version is basic, and so the Pro tier is recommended if you can afford it. I will be using Terrastruct going forward for my diagramming needs on my software development hobby projects.